Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. It is a pleasure to see everybody here once again for night school. Night school every single night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. We break everything down. It's not a news program. It's not a podcast. It is a classroom, a global classroom where we examine and do deep dives on the biggest stories going on in the world today. And today is no exception. We begin with Israel's war on media. It has been a very long day for independent media, for mainstream media, for honestly, for all media outlets when it comes to the state of Israel. And the reason is because earlier in the day, the Israeli government actually took equipment from the Associated Press, not a mainstream outlet that is known as sort of dissident or crazy, not a extremist outlet that's small and unknown and mysterious. This is the Associated Press, one of the most important, one of the most influential, one of the most powerful, one of the most accepted news outlets in the world. Oftentimes when the Associated Press is on the scene, they're not there to even advance a story. They're not there necessarily they're definitely not there to give their opinion on the story. A lot of time, all the Associated Press is showing up to do is give you the raw footage. They're sometimes doing what we call a pool feed, where they're just showing the footage of a speech or showing the footage of an area. And in fact, today, the AP was in northern Gaza, and they were just giving a long-standing video feed of northern Gaza. And all of a sudden, Israel shows up, the Israeli government shows up and tries, no, they don't try to take, they actively take their footage. Look at this. This is not like a hypothetical anymore. This is not a dress rehearsal. They literally rolled up and took the Associated Press's equipment, their cameras. They took it because they said that they were violating the law. Now, you may say, well, what law could they possibly be violating? It's a good question. It's a good question. The law is called the Foreign Press Law. Now, the Foreign Press Law is a law that was, ratified, signed into effect a couple weeks ago. And it basically is a law that was designed intentionally and explicitly to ban Al Jazeera from Israel. That's all it was about. But the Foreign Press Law is a law that is designed to ban any kind of media that has a danger to the country. Any kind of law that causes problems, any kind of law that produces incitement. This is the language they're using, right? And so they show up. The Israeli government says the Associated Press is creating incitement. They're doing harm to the security of the government. So they take the camera, they take a tripod, they take a modem, and they take two microphones. And according to the Ministry of Communication, they said that the film that was shot of northern Gaza is a problem because it was being fed to Al Jazeera. Again, they're not unclear. This is all about Netanyahu's beef with Al Jazeera. They said, we're going to take you off the air because your feed is going to Al Jazeera. Now, let's be clear. The Associated Press is not giving all of their footage or sharing footage. It doesn't even have a business relationship exclusively with Al Jazeera. What they're doing is, again, they're sharing a shot. So in other words, the Associated Press shows up, they take a picture or they film video of a scene, and they share that scene to Al Jazeera. They share it maybe to potentially NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, VOX, Vox. They could be sending it to News Nation. They could be sending it to the UK. They could be sending it to places like the BBC. They're simply sharing the footage. But because they didn't cut off Al Jazeera, they're saying that now Al Jazeera has access to state security issues, specifically that because in the footage you could, in theory, see the IDF forces. Now they're making it seem as if the Associated Press is trying to uh, undermine the safety of Israeli soldiers. So the Associated Press, of course, said this is bullshit. They didn't use that language. They're much more sophisticated and polished than I am. But they said this is bullshit. They said that they have been, I'll read you their statement. They said, we have complied with Israel's military censorship rules by not reporting details about troop movements that could endanger soldiers. However, the wire service noted its live shot of Gaza generally showed little more than, quote, smoke rising over the territory. So all you saw was smoke. But Israel is not saying this because they actually think their troops are in danger. They don't think that. What they think is that they can pressure the international media community to shut Al Jazeera out. Full disclosure for anybody watching doesn't know this, I work for Al Jazeera. I am the host of a show on Al Jazeera called Upfront. You should watch it. It's on Friday nights. Extra plug there. But this isn't about that, but I just want to be clear for ethical, journalistic transparency purposes. I do work at Al Jazeera. But Al Jazeera is not doing anything to merit this kind of response. What they don't like is the fact that Al Jazeera every single day reports on the war on Gaza. That Al Jazeera every single day shows where the bodies are buried. That literally, when you look at the live graves at Al Shifa and Al Nasser Hospital, Al Jazeera does not accept the Hezbollah Israeli propaganda stories and lies and talking points. Al Jazeera pushes back. They're not the only ones, but Al Jazeera has consistently been a thorn in the side of Netanyahu and the Netanyahu government. And so he is especially targeting and focused upon Al Jazeera and anybody else connected to Al Jazeera. This is all that this is about, right? And that's why back last month, the Knesset, Israeli lawmakers, they voted 71-10. This was not a close call to give Netanyahu and his government the ability to ban Al Jazeera in Israel. Now, Netanyahu doesn't get that much love and support from anybody. He barely has a coalition at this point. But he was able to convince people that Al Jazeera was a threat. So what they do, they kicked Al Jazeera out of the country. Now, to be clear, we're still in the West Bank. I'm saying we because I work there. Al Jazeera is still in the West Bank. Al Jazeera is still in Gaza. Al Jazeera, I believe, is still in Jerusalem. No, actually, we're not in Jerusalem either because Israel acts as if Jerusalem is theirs, right, as opposed to contested territory. So the Jerusalem bureau is in Amman now, but you still have the West Bank and Gaza. So this is not a small thing. That's the story, right? That's the breakdown. But again, here in Night School, we don't just give you the news. This ain't a news station. I want to also explain to you why this is a big deal. Israel is waging complete war on the media. Since October 7th, Israel has killed more than 100 journalists. That alone is a crisis. That alone is a crisis. 100 Palestinian journalists have been killed. 2 Israeli, 3 Lebanese. And I'm not talking about the ones that are injured or missing. Israel is waging war on the media. Both Egypt and Israel at this point have banned journalists from entering the Gaza Strip, foreign journalists. So you can't enter from the outside. They kill you when you're on the inside. This is a war on the media. And then the mainstream media outlets, they're being fed lies. And the people who push back against the lies, they're being kicked out of the country. This is the war. Now, what's making this even more interesting and complicated is the fact that Al Jazeera is sponsored by who? Qatar. Qatar is a country that has been actively engaged in ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas. So this is super complicated, right? It's complicated. On the one hand, Hamas and Israel are having a negotiation brokered by Qatar, and Israel's downfall, and Qatar has been helpful. You can think what you want about Israel. You can think what you want about Hamas. You can think what you want about Syria. What we know for sure is the negotiations have been advanced because of the actions of, in part, of Qatar. That is just a fact. So when you have that as your circumstance, it makes you wonder, again, what is the end goal here? What is the end game here for Israel? What are they trying to do? When they get to the point where they're banning the Associated Press. Now, this is how bad it was. The international community stood up and said, yo, enough. The international community said, you cannot continue to do this. Today, even the White House stood up. Now, you know it's bad when the White House says, hey, we are concerned. Because the White House ain't concerned about nothing when it comes to Israel, right? In terms of holding Israel accountable, right? They said, look, cool story, bro, right? You're saying that the reason that you did this is because of security concerns. But let's look at the so-called security concern here, right? Look at it. Look at it. This is what the shot was showing. Because I want y'all to understand here with context. This is what the shot demonstrated. You see smoke coming out of buildings. You see some buildings. You don't see one soldier in this image. Show me a soldier. Show me a soldier. And they were trying to say that this shot compromises the safety and the integrity of the Israeli military, that troop movements are being compromised here, that you can see where the IDF soldiers are. Where? You don't see one of them. But we know that's not what it's about. That's never what it was about. It was never about the soldiers. It was never about the soldiers. It was about making it clear, making it very clear that any media outlet that challenges Israel, that doesn't buy the state narrative, that doesn't stand up and just take it, right? That they are going to be a problem. And this is the challenge. This is the crisis, I think, of the media right now for the state of Israel. Anyway, I won't belabor the point, but it is a deep problem. It's so bad, because I got to tell you the end of this, that they reversed course. They gave the equipment back. They said they've thought about it. The Minister of Communications said, we're going to give the equipment back. Why? Because even America, even the White House said we're concerned about this. When the White House says they're concerned, you got to calibrate your understanding, right? If the White House says we don't care, it means they might care. If they say we care, it means they're upset. If they say we're very concerned or we're troubled, it means they are furious. But they'll never stand up publicly and say that against Israel. And so when the White House publicly says we are troubled and concerned by what they did to the Associated Press, that's a very slippery slope. That's a very dangerous precedent to say. Now you're going to take people's equipment because you saw some smoke coming out of a tower, or because they didn't agree to your internal country's law about sharing footage with Al Jazeera from a pool feed of smoke. Come on, y'all. That's wild. That's wild. So let's move on. But please understand that the stakes are very high here in Israel, in the United States, when it comes to media freedom. We see our media freedom being compromised here, but we absolutely see it compromised over there. And while Israel constantly claims that it is the only democracy in the Middle East, ain't that what they tell you? We're the only democracy in the Middle East. That's all we keep hearing. If they're the only democracy in the Middle East, why are we seeing such anti-democratic practices happening? And it's only when the world says something. It's only when the world stands up and says, wait a minute, what are you doing? When they get caught with their hands down, when they get caught with their pants down, rather, that's the only time they act, which means we have to be vigilant. That means we have to be media watchdogs. We have to be vigorously policing them. And I don't like that language of policing. We have to be vigilantly monitoring what they're doing. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. I want to talk about Joe Biden and the International Criminal Court, which has been tripping. We'll be right back. Oof. We'll be right back.
Right? You make her happy, so you'll be all right. And happy wife normally is about happy life for me. Right. That's what I'm saying. It ain't about her, it's about you.
So Van says that because Jewish people showed up for Black Americans during the Civil Rights era, he now feels compelled to stand with them now. Let me be clear.
What's the white liberal ideology I'm following?
I'm not saying you.
No, that's what you said. So I'm saying, which one?
No one is free until we are all free. There is no room for any injustice. Welcome back, family. We are back and we are here at Night School. So good to see everybody here. The next story that we have to talk about is Joe Biden. He never fails to disappoint. Earlier this week, the International Criminal Court, in fact, just yesterday, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants or filed applications for arrest warrants for 3 members of Hamas for war crimes. They also filed applications to get arrest warrants for Yoav Gallant, the Israeli Minister of Defense, and the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. The world applauded. The world said, finally. The world was excited to see justice carried out. No one disagrees, or few people disagree, that what happened on October 7th was a war crime committed by Hamas. It is almost impossible to make a counter argument to that. Why? Well, because they killed people. They killed innocent people. They kidnapped people. We could go on down the list. There's no doubt about that. But we also know that history didn't start on October 7th and it didn't end on October 7th. And so when we look at October 8th, which is when the charges against Israel began with the International Criminal Court, we see Israel being charged for what? War crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide. These are what Israel's being charged with. And the international community also said, good, there's some accountability here. Well, the world might have been happy, but there were some exceptions. One of those exceptions was your president, Genocide Joe. He had a different take. Here's what he said.
We reject the ICC's application for arrest warrants against Israeli leaders. Whatever these warrants may imply, there is no equivalence between Israel and Hamas. And it's clear Israel wants to do all it can to ensure civilian protection. But let me be clear. Contrary to allegations against Israel made by the International Court of Justice, what's happening is not genocide. We reject that. We will always stand with Israel and the threats against its security.
We always stand with Israel and the threats against its security. He made it very clear. We don't care what Israel say. We don't care what Israel do. We riding with Israel. What a bizarre position to take for any country about anything. We're always going to stand. What if they mess up? What if they commit a crime? What if they undermine your security? We have to have a space, just as a general position, to not always align with another country. But let's take that off. That's an abstract argument. Let's be very specific and concrete right now. Israel is engaging in war crimes. There is absolutely nothing that Joe Biden said to contradict that. What he basically said is, you can't issue an arrest warrant, ICC, because he started with the ICC, International Criminal Court, against Israel. We disagree with that because there's no equivalency between Israel and Hamas. I agree. There's absolutely no equivalency for lots of reasons, which is part of the reason why Israel is committing war crimes, because they are an occupying power. Hamas is not. They have the ability to control Gaza by land, air, and sea. Hamas does not. They have the ability unilaterally to shut off power, to stop water flows, to starve people to death. Hamas does not. So yes, they are different, President Biden. And it's the difference that makes Israel culpable and complicit, as are you and your cronies in Washington. Now, that doesn't mean that Israel doesn't have certain rights and freedoms to defend its territorial integrity. They do have a right to self-defense, but self-defense also has limits. Israel does not have a right to self-defense in the areas that it occupies militarily. That is simply not legally true. Israel does have a right, though, to defend itself, to defend its border, and to defend its citizens. Nobody's saying that they don't. And Hamas has a duty not to violate those and breach those borders and boundaries and rules. That's why Hamas has been charged with war crimes. But Israel and Hamas don't have to be the same for them both to be charged with war crimes. Again, they weren't charged with the exact same war crimes. They were charged with different crimes. And we went over this last night on the show. So what Hamas was charged with, I think, is indisputable at this point. It's absolutely indisputable. But let's not use that. Let's not use that as a distraction from the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu, Yoav Gallant, and the rest of the Israeli government that takes this position and has advanced this position and has supported this position is absolutely engaged in crimes against humanity. That they're absolutely violating the Rome Statute. That they're absolutely violating conventions on human rights. This is just a fact. You can't starve people. You can't deny people access to food. You can't deny people access to humanitarian relief. You can't shoot people unarmed. You can't kill people because they're Palestinian or because of their any ethnic or racial, national, or ethnical, to use the language of the genocide conventions, identity or formulation or association. You can't do it. So Biden just said, we don't reject it because we think Israel and Hamas aren't the same. That's not a good enough argument. And he said, we disagree because we stand with Israel. That's also not acceptable. But it gets worse. It gets worse. It's not just that they're criticizing the prosecutor of the ICC, Mr. Khan. And it's not just that they're disagreeing with the ICC's decision. What we have seen is the Republicans and the Democrats reject the ICC's standing, right? Biden says they don't have, or officials in the Biden administration, the Biden White House have said they don't know if the ICC has the jurisdiction to seek those arrests. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, said that the ICC's efforts were, quote, baseless and illegitimate. But it gets worse. The House GOP leaders said that they are considering sanctions, not against Israel, not against Netanyahu, against the ICC. They said, all of them, that they are seeking to sanction the ICC. They find the ICC's position so deplorable, so disgusting that they want the ICC sanctioned. And here's the tough part. There were so many politicians out there, some of whom are otherwise reasonable people, some of whom are on the right side of many issues, who are taking a dishonest position on this. Sherrod Brown, for example, he's a senator from Ohio, Democrat, in case you were wondering. He said, quote, I don't see any moral equivalence between the democratic government of Israel and a terrorist group like Hamas. None. See, this is the new Democratic sleight of hand, right? They won't directly answer the question of whether Israel's actions rise to the level of genocide or whether they're actually culpable under the ICC's statutes or whether the claims that the ICC makes are actually legitimate. What they do is say, well, they charge Hamas and they charge Netanyahu, and so that means they're saying that they're the same, and Hamas and Israel can't be the same, and so therefore I reject it just because of the ostensible equivalency. It's a dishonest argument. And what makes it even more dishonest is if they didn't charge Hamas, they would say, how can you only charge Israel and not Hamas? That proves that the court is biased. So they're only happy if Hamas is the only group charged, even though Israel has clearly committed the crimes. So ask your Democratic congressman, whether it's in the House or the Senate, ask them next time why. Take the equivalency thing off the table. I concede to you Hamas and Israel aren't the same thing. Fine, that's a silly argument. Explain to me why Israel's actions do not amount to genocide. That's the only thing I want answered. That's the only question I want answered. Explain to me why Israel's actions do not amount to genocide. That's all I want you to tell me. You'll be waiting a long time because they don't have an answer. They don't have an answer because there isn't one. There isn't one. Just like there was no answer for Putin. Putin deserved to be charged as a war criminal. There was no outcry about it. Muammar Gaddafi was charged under the International Criminal Court. They both have arrest warrants. No one was mad. Why? Because they thought they were legitimate. But somehow, Netanyahu isn't? Knock it off. But this is the problem. This is part of the posturing. Joe Biden speaks out of both sides of his mouth. He will go to Morehouse College on Sunday and say he supports a ceasefire. And then on Monday, he'll send weapons. He'll say he wants us to stop now, but he won't put any sanctions on Israel. In fact, he'll put the sanctions on the people. He'll put the sanctions on the people that are trying to sanction them. They're trying to hold Israel accountable. Joe Biden has made his position clear, and he's trying to thread a needle that's not going to work. He's trying to show he's tough on issues. He's trying to show that he supports Israel. He's also trying to show that he's progressive by calling for a ceasefire. He will literally say, we're not saying any weapons are going to be used in a ground invasion of Rafah today. And then the very next day or the very next week, he'll send $1 billion or $2 billion or X billions of dollars over there. He is speaking out of both sides of his mouth because he's trying to make everybody happy. And what he's going to do is mess around and lose this election because he's trying to play a very old school, antiquated game. And he's going to lose, and we're going to end up with Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump becomes president, do not blame people who are young or progressive or black or brown or Muslim who simply didn't want to vote for Joe Biden. Don't blame them. It ain't their fault. No. It's not their fault at all. Joe Biden is showing you every day why people are running from his campaign. He's showing you why. Anyway, we got a couple more things we want to talk about tonight. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about Cameron, who made an interesting appearance on CNN last night to talk about Diddy. It went in a direction that I think most people did not expect. And we're still trying to make sense of it. We'll talk about it on the other side. Stay right here.
Right? You make her happy, so you'll be all right. Yeah. And happy wife normally is about happy life for me.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It ain't about her, it's about you.
So Van says that because Jewish people showed up for Black Americans during the Civil Rights era, he now feels compelled to stand with them now. Let me be clear.
What's the white liberal ideology I'm following?
I'm not saying you.
No, that's what you said. So I'm saying, which one?
No one is free until we are all free. There's no room for any injustice. Welcome back to Night School, family. We have an interesting circumstance in mainstream media. We have controversies in politics, we bring up political experts. We have controversies in sports, we bring sporting experts. But sometimes when things happen in pop culture, music in particular, some news outlets go to the media experts, some go to the artists themselves. I think we should do both, right? Artists are very smart, they're very capable, they're very articulate. And they offer a perspective or a point of view that I think is necessary. Some media outlets don't do a good job of picking. Some media outlets pick looking not for clarity, but they just want controversy. Some look to make, for example, rappers look bad. Others are trying to show them in a positive light. So it depends on the network. It depends on the space. But I don't see a consistent usage of quality guests across the board. Well, yesterday, CNN wanted insight into Diddy. And they wanted insight into the controversy. And so they decided to bring on Cameron. If you don't know Cameron, Cameron is a very well-known, legendary at this point rapper. He is also the co-host, of It Is What It Is with Mace, a sports podcast that airs every single day on YouTube, Monday to Friday on YouTube at 8 a.m. And they brought Cameron out. Now, Cameron is thoughtful. Cameron is smart. Cameron is articulate. Cameron has the ability to do a great interview. Cameron also has a history of giving some interesting and I find highly entertaining interviews. Well, yesterday, he appeared on Abby Phillips' show to talk about Diddy and what was going on. I just got to show it to you because there's no way to explain it without you seeing it. Here's what happened.
First, when you saw that video of Diddy, Cassie in that hotel, did you recognize that Sean Combs?
What I want to say, first of all, when I seen the video, everything in the video was egregious. I'm against. I don't support all the charges that's alleged against him. I don't support any of that trafficking, minors, domestic violence. I'm totally against it. So when I seen the video, yeah, I was kind of upset with it. Being that I know him, he's not necessarily a friend, but yeah, I was upset when I seen it. But
did you recognize
everything
him?
I just said.
Did you recognize that kind of anger at all from your experiences?
I don't know like that. What did you mean? Do I be recognized? Did I recognize him? I seen him. What do you mean my experiences? I seen him and I thought it was.
Now, at this point, the interview seemed to be going left. She asked him, did you recognize the person on the video behaving that way? He seemed to take the question literally. Like, what do you mean? Why are you asking me if I recognize him? I seen him. I didn't zoom in, etc. So I think he was taking it literally, but he also seemed irritated by the question itself. He seemed irritated by what he was being asked. And it wasn't clear to me on the first time watching it why he was being why he was irritated by the question, right? If you're there to talk about Diddy, seems fair game to ask that question, right? You saw the video, how'd you respond? He gave a great first answer, which was, I don't support anything on the video. But other than that, why? Now, at that moment, he said, what is you talking about? What do you mean? Now it's getting aggressive and it's intensifying, but it's not exactly clear why. But let's keep watching.
It was disgusting. I didn't do a zoom in to see if it was really him or nothing, but.
Right. Again, he seems to be answering the recognized question literally.
He admitted it was him, so yeah, it was him.
What did you think about the apology that he gave in that other video?
The apology ain't for me to decide, it's for Cassie. What I think about it don't matter. He ain't do nothing to me. Cassie need to ask Cassie if she accept the apology.
I think that's a solid answer, right? I mean, I think as a media representative, as a voice, as a critic, we have a right to hear Diddy's apology and offer an analysis of it. Many of us did. I did. Other people did. But Cameron also has a right to say, yo, it's not my business. It's between him and Cassie.
Told you how I feel. I said what I said.
I want to play a conversation that you had on your podcast.
Now, I'm not going to play this conversation, but what he did was he played a clip where they played a clip from his podcast where Mace basically said that he brought Cameron to Biggie and not to Diddy because he thought Biggie would treat. It was a clip that talked about how he didn't trust Diddy. Mace was saying, I didn't bring you as an artist, a young artist, to sign with Diddy because of how he treats his artists. I brought you to Mace. I brought you to Puff, right? And so she asked him to sort of explain that position, right? And here's where we go.
More about that. I mean, is there something known in the industry about how Diddy treated his artists?
So I'm going to get some cheeks after this horsepower joint. Now,
I don't know if you saw Abby's face right there. She looked to her right. She's like, where am I now? What just happened? He stopped, took a drink of Horsepower. Horsepower is a product that he sells. You can see it on his social media site. The idea is that it's to improve sexual performance. And he said, excuse me, I'm about to get some cheeks after this. He said, so in the middle of this interview, he said, I'm about to get some cheeks after this. That part for me is too much. That part for me is too far. This is not because it's CNN, but because, and I'm not like, oh, you can't do this in front of white people. Oh, you can't do this. None of that. Every time we have a critique of Black behavior, it's not respectability politics. Sometimes it's a legitimate concern about Black people and how we engage and treat each other, because I actually care about how Black people treat each other. I don't care if no white people are watching. Telling somebody I'm about to go have sex after this interview, to me, is inappropriate. It puts Abby in an uncomfortable position. And I don't think she did anything to deserve. I don't think anybody deserves that kind of exchange, but she didn't do anything. There are some times where you come on a show and the person is aggressive. I've seen Cam on Bill O'Reilly where he put Bill O'Reilly in his place to an extent. He's like, you mad? You mad? You know, you see that meme, you mad? I'm good with that. I've seen Cameron on 60 Minutes where I was like, he made an interesting point about serial killer and 4B. Like, he's like, I'm not a snitch, right? But And I also don't mind people plugging their products, right? Horsepower, check it out. My show, Monday to Friday, check it out. I'm good with all of that. But saying I'm gonna get some cheeks after this, in his mind, maybe he was saying it to the audience, but he's speaking directly to this young woman. And by young, I mean she's our age, she's a little younger than me. But like, so to me, that is inappropriate.
I'm just going off what Mace said. Mace took me to Biggie. I don't really know Puffers like Mace know Puff. So I appreciate what Mace said. And of course, that's my brother. So if he felt that way, then he felt that way. I can't really tell you how Puff moves or anything like that. Mace may know better than me because he was signed to Puff. I wasn't. But my show does come on at 8 a.m. Eastern on YouTube. It's called It Is What It Is. And y'all make sure y'all check it out. I mean, I might get some more information out of Mace from there. But for me to tell you how Puff act and all that, I don't know. I never was signed to him. Yeah.
What about the industry in general? I mean, so many people have pointed out that Diddy couldn't get away with this stuff if there weren't a lot of people protecting him. Do you think that's the case?
Now, as a journalist, I can tell you, at this point, it looks to me that Abby is trying to move more carefully. She's like, I'm not getting any answers out of the questions that I'm asking. So let me ask questions, and the responses I'm getting would suggest that I'm asking things that are unreasonable, inappropriate, or outside of his scope of knowledge or his desire to share that knowledge, right? Like, did Puff move like this? You got to ask his people. What do you think about what do you think about the apology? That's not for me. That's for Cassie, right? So in each case, as a journalist, you're watching this and you go, all right, let me ask a question that I can at least get a very simple answer to, so that the interview doesn't look like a failure. Because when you're doing this interview, you're uncomfortable as the interviewer too.
Who the talent agent for this joint? Like, you think I'll be sitting around watching what Diddy do and all this? I didn't know this was a Diddy joint that y'all invited me to. Yo, who booked me for this joint?
All right.
Wow, and I don't be sitting around watching Diddy and all that. Yeah,
thanks.
Man, come on, man.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you for your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me. You enjoy.
So Now I know that face well. Abby's like, what the F did I just get into? And Cameron's point is this whole conversation is about Diddy. Why am I being asked so many questions about Diddy? So the first thought that I had was, oh, this must be a situation where they brought him for one thing and asked him another, because I've had that happen as well. Where, you know, I say I'm coming on to talk about this, you bring me and talk about that, I feel sandbagged. I feel like, you know, I got tricked. You know, if they say, hey, we want you to come in and talk about the music industry, hey, we want you to come in, we want you to talk about we want you to talk about whatever, right? We want you to talk about the general culture of hip hop. And then all of a sudden you get just a barrage of Diddy questions. I could understand the frustration. You say, yo, who's the talent agent for this? Who booked me for this? Et cetera, et cetera. Like, what's going on? So at that moment, I could see saying, look, I don't want to talk about Diddy. I'm out. Taking off the microphone, quitting, saying I don't want to do this. I get that. The horsepower thing, that I'm getting some cheeks afterward, to me is inexcusable either way. But it gets more interesting. Because Cameron, the next morning, today, appeared on his own show, which again is Monday to Friday on YouTube. Make sure y'all check it out. I actually like the show a great deal. Here's what he said there.
Yeah, let's actually talk about that before we even get into the questions. Like, elephant in the room. You were on another show.
Yeah, I came. I didn't even go home last night because I went to the studio. I washed up though, so I'm good. I ain't gonna explain none of that. But yeah, man, you know, you was gonna say something? Oh no, I seen your hand. Yeah, no, they invited me on the show to talk about what's going on with Diddy and all that, and then. My thing about it was, Mace, is that they didn't invite me on to say about how successful our show is or the positive stuff we do in the community, how every day, 5 days a week, Mace talks to kids on a Zoom call. Mace doesn't even promote this. I'm going to promote this for Mace, is that every day at 5 o'clock, it don't matter what's going on, what's happening, where he's at. It could be money involved. It could be a photo shoot. It could be whatever. He stops what he's doing to talk to kids around the world about being positive and doing what they believe in and so on and so forth. And to the point where, you know, one day he was at my house and he told me, Cam, you can't make no noise. Don't come in. I'm not playing with you. Like, that's how serious, no, but seriously, that's how serious he takes what he does. And we do all these positive things. And you call me on CNN for the bullshit, I'm going to give you the bullshit. That's just what's going to happen. So, we got some free promo. I teased the Pink Horsepower. They tried to bring up when Mace bought me the Biggie instead of Puff. And I said, yeah, if you seen it, what you asking me about it for? Like, nigga, it was self-explanatory. So I got us some free promo. I didn't get the shout out to Dipset.
That's the gist of it, right? Like, it gets more complicated, right? Omega's saying basically what I'm saying. Initially, we heard, or assumed I did, that if you're that frustrated at them Diddy questions, it's because you got sandbagged. It's because you got baited and switched, that the person had you thinking that you were going to be talking about one thing, and in fact, you would be talking about the other. But according to him, our brother Cameron is saying, no. They brought me to talk about Diddy. And he makes an interesting point. Again, a lot of positive stuff going on. We got a great show. We're doing stuff in the community. Lots of positivity. Nobody calls me for the positivity. They only call me to talk negativity. They only call me to talk Diddy. That's not fair. He's right. Unfortunately, mainstream media, especially corporate media, does not want to highlight Black men. They don't want to highlight Black achievement. They don't want to highlight positive work in the community. They don't. They say if it bleeds, it leads, right? When somebody dies, we love to run that. Negativity runs. All that makes sense to me. But the fact of the matter is, he knew all of that before he walks into the studio. So if you know that before you walk into the studio, you could also just not walk in to the studio. You could just not walk into the studio. You could just decide that you don't want to do a network that only wants to ask negative stuff. But you can't get mad that they asking Diddy questions when they brought you on to ask Diddy questions. I don't think you can have it both ways. I think he's 100% right to say, you know what, this is some bullshit. They only brought me on here to talk about Diddy. I'm not doing that. But you can't just pop up on the joint and say, yeah, well, you know, I don't like these questions, but I'm still going to show up. Because it puts you embarrass Abby Phillips. You disrespected Abby Phillips. Telling Abby Phillips you want to go get some cheeks after this is so far beyond what's reasonable and fair. That sister did not deserve that. Now, if you decide to come on the show and say, look, I hate this platform. I don't agree with the way y'all lay things out. I don't like the way y'all do business. I don't like the fact that you didn't highlight any of the positive stuff we got going on, and you're only here to talk about negativity. You only talk about rap when it's negative. You only talk about rap when it's bad. If he said all that stuff, I still may not have the same approach, but I wouldn't disagree with him. I'd be like, you're not wrong. But there's just no defensible reason to talk to Abby Phillips like that. And again, or anybody, but especially a woman, especially a black woman, especially this sister trying to do a thing. And I could see the embarrassment, the humiliation on her face, the frustration, and maybe the anger on her face. It just doesn't add up. And as brothers, we have to be able to hold each other accountable for that. I love Cameron and Mace's show. I got a lot of respect for Cameron and Mace. I appreciate the work they're doing in the world. I appreciate their friendship. I've said that before. I appreciate their bond. They modeled something very positive and healthy for black men in their reconciliation. But this ain't cool, man. It's just not. It's just not. All right. Before we go, I want to talk about one more thing. There will be a day where this Diddy stuff will be past us. But right now, it's just not. And we are in a space where people are still responding, they're analyzing, they're making sense, they're feeling, they're hurting. And a lot of interesting people are stepping up and speaking up. One of those people is Misa Hylton. Misa Hylton is the mother of Diddy's son, Justin. Misa is the ex-girlfriend of Diddy. And she, honestly, is usually pretty quiet about Diddy and Diddy's life and Diddy's goings on. She rarely speaks up and speaks out. But she decided to speak up and speak out on her Instagram page. And because it's Misa and because she rarely does this, it was especially noteworthy. And as you see here, to the left is a photo of Quincy, who is Diddy's basically like stepson, it's Albie Shore's son, along with Kim Porter. And then you see Christian and Justin. She wrote, "I am heartbroken that Cassie must relive the horror of her abuse, and my heart goes out to her. I know exactly how she feels, and through my empathy, it has triggered my own trauma." And of course, Misa Hylton is responding to the video that leaked or was released of Diddy assaulting Cassie in the hotel. The video is from years ago, but it was released on Friday. And then Diddy issued an apology on Sunday, one that was very not well received by the world. He said, she said, these young people were raised by women that want the best for them. We put God and education first and have always been united in our mutual effort to support their dreams. Two of the youngest do not have their mother here, referring to the twins, Kim Porter's twins, and it has been our duty to support them. Their father needs help, and I am praying that he truly does the personal work and receives it. This was powerful. It was beautiful. It was compelling in lots of ways. First, she's reminding us that Cassie's not alone. She said, "I am heartbroken that Cassie must relive the horror of her abuse. My heart goes out to her. I know exactly how she feels. Again, she said a lot without saying a lot. She said, I know exactly how she feels. That resonated with a lot of people. It leads people to believe, it will lead people to believe, whether it's true or not, that she suffered similar experiences as Cassie. When we listen to the reports, the testimony, the interviews of people in Diddy's circle, including his bodyguards, including friends, there are a lot of people who say that what happened to Cassie happened to a lot of other people. That the allegations of Lil Rod happened to a lot of people. That the allegations that happened made by other people who have sued Diddy have happened to other people. That nobody is singular, but that this is part of a long and deep pattern in his life and in his relationships. And so when Misa Hylton says, this brought back trauma for me, that says a lot. And it wasn't grandstanding. It wasn't like I want some attention. It wasn't like I'm trying to get a lawsuit. It wasn't any of that. It was simply like saying, look, this is resonating with me. At the same time, when we look at this image, this really, I think, powerful image of the kids, she reminded us, she said, these young people were raised by women that want the best for them. We put God and education first and have always been united in our mutual effort to support their dreams. She's talking about the fact that the kids were always raised in a village. It was a really beautiful model of child raising that happened here, where he has children by lots of different women, and the women get along, the women support each other, the women love each other, the women recognize what they're up against, what they're dealing with, and they fight and struggle and teach and love and build and heal and survive together. There's something beautiful about that. And Misa reminded us of that. And I think she's also reminding us that there are real lives here, real children here, including some who aren't grown yet, like the twins. And we hope that they all do well. And she had an opportunity to step on his neck. She had an opportunity to say, you know, he's a monster, he's awful, he's this, he's that. And she didn't do that. She said, I hope he gets support. She said, their father needs help, and I'm praying that he truly does the personal work and receives it. So she's saying the work ain't finished. Unlike Diddy's apology, which was like, I was in a bad place back then. I got the help. I'm okay now, but I apologize for what happened back then. She's saying, nah, he still needs that help. He still needs that work. She's still reminding the world that this is unfinished work, that this is unfinished work. And that's important. That's important to let people know. But it's also a reminder that this Diddy thing ain't going anywhere. Every day, every week, every month, there's going to be people coming out. There's going to be testimonies. There's going to be complaints. There's going to be traumas. There's going to be lawsuits. There's going to be lots of stuff. So regardless of what you think about Diddy, regardless of what you think about this case or this circumstance, you have to understand this is going to be something that will follow him for a long time. And it may mean that we never see Diddy return to prominence again, stardom again, to celebrity again. He'll always be a celebrity, but not beloved celebrity status. This is a lot. But like everybody else, we pray for Diddy. We pray for Cassie more. At least I do. We pray for the kids even more. I hope everybody heals. I hope everybody gets justice. I hope everybody's loved well. I hope everybody survives. And that's not just for Diddy and Cassie. That's for everybody, because we got a long way to go. All right, family, that is it for Night School. I want to thank you so much for watching tonight. I want to thank you for watching every night, because what we do here is so important, and we can't do it without you. So make sure you hit that like button. If you haven't hit the like button, please do it, because when you smash up those likes, you let the YouTube algorithm know that we matter. Independent media is fighting an uphill battle, and the only way we survive is when you hit that like button. Also, hit the subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed yet, why not? Hit the subscribe button so you can get all the content, not just this wonderful show, Night School, is here every night, but also the Classroom in the Cell podcast, also updated speeches, news reports, Coffee and Books podcast, all the things, they're right here. Just hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell so you can get up-to-the-minute updates. Also, I want to shout out a couple people, man. Some people have been showing some love out here. Robin Walker Murphy just gifted $5 memberships. Thank you so much. Your gift of 5 memberships will help more people experience what it's like to be a member of the channel. Karen D, shout out to you as well with another 5 memberships. I'm so grateful. Zia Sam, welcome to the family. Everybody, welcome Zia Sam, who just became a YouTube channel member. Marc Lamont Hill channel member. Ben Goldberger, welcome to the family. He got the MLH official chain around his neck too. Thank you so much for what you do. Bullet the Bunny, we love you all the time. For the hustle, AP's link is back up. That's right. The AP link is back up. They're back in Israel, and we're back running too. And you need the APs, but you also need the independent media, and that's why we appreciate your generous donation. Rose Ability said, was this what they wanted the whole time when they voted and kicked out Al Jazeera, to use the law to cut out all outside media? Yes. Certainly outside media that fundamentally challenges the Israeli Hasbara. That is the point, Rose Ability. That's a great question, and that is absolutely a keen analysis. Also, the ICC, can we talk about the U.S. threatening that if Palestine becomes a state, they'll defund the UN, thus defunding the World Food Program and starving the world? I mean, these are the kinds of considerations that nations only make when they're indifferent to the misery and the suffering of everyday people. That's why we got to keep a spotlight on. The only reason Palestine doesn't have member status in the UN right now is because the U.S. vetoed it. The world wants one thing, the United States wants something else, and they continue to get their way because we act like bullies. And I'm saying we because we have a duty through our tax dollars, we have a duty through our votes to push back and to challenge this system and fundamentally change it. I love y'all for these questions and comments. Jeremy M said there's no such thing as rules-based international order if the rules only apply when you want them to apply. That, again, is correct. They want the ICC to jump on Hamas, but they don't want the ICC to jump on Israel. They want the International Court of Criminal Court to be there for Gaddafi and for Putin, but they don't want them for Gallant and Netanyahu. This is exactly the double standard that you're talking about, Jeremy. You're 100% right and exact. Karen D said Biden, the Senate, and Congress need to be charged. Biden, the Senate, and Congress need to be charged by the ICC for complicity to genocide when they can go, and they can all go straight to hell. I'll tell you one thing. I think the ICJ is gearing up. The International Court of Justice is absolutely gearing up for that. The ICC is a different body because it's about war crimes. I'm not saying that the complicity isn't there. I'm just saying it's a different calculus. It'll be interesting to see what the ICC does, but I hope they do something because we need justice. Everybody, again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, but also, if you're so inclined, hit that join button. Become a monthly subscriber to the channel. We are building this plane as we fly it, and every single one of you that joins the channel, that goes and clicks that join button, you allow us to build a base of support that allows us to hire staff, that allows us to build a studio, that allows us to invest in the technology necessary to give you the kind of quality media that you get every single night here on the channel. If you don't want to make a monthly commitment, we understand. Go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. They're all up there right now, and make a donation. If everybody watching right now, if everybody watching the platform right now were to donate $5, if everybody watching right now were to donate $5, we would meet our goal for the week easily. Just from the people watching live right now. So if you're watching right now and you can hit the join button, please do. If not, consider Cash Apping, PayPaling, Venmoing, or Zelling us just $4 or $5. Either one will get us very close to our goals, and we appreciate it. And if you can't do any of that, we still love you, family. Just hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a thing. And share our content and spread the word about the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel and about Night School every night, Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. right here on the channel. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.